most important. Number two, if any kinds of separation, if there was violence, they have places, especially for where there was violence, so there is mediator, but also outer support to try to bring back together. The idea is to minimize the effect on children, but everybody involved. And I totally agree with you that children, the happiest of separation, children suffer. You know, but they will come out okay most of the time.
Yeah.
But when it's made with bitterness, my God, what a sad case it is.
Well, it's worse now, though. There are so many of the poor families. I mean, the parents are on crack and drugs. I mean, these kids are living. They're living their life in thin air, just like Desiree said.
Nothing.
And they, you know, but she said, but people are hard. But if you have hope and stay true, people will be kind to you. This was, I wish I had the old hope.
You know the sad part? Again, I'm coming back. I'm treating myself like an old gramophone, but I am old anyway. It's the cost related to society, and somehow the government doesn't seem to realize the billion. All studies have demonstrated that for each dollar we would invest in education or prevention, we would save between $6 and $13, depending on the research. If you were just about to save $2 on each dollar invested, you're talking billions and billions of dollars. We always say we have no money. There is a surplus of money if it's well managed.
In Virginia, we'll spend $25,000 a year on prisons, and early pre-K could be $8,000 a year. I think we could change it very easily, but it's another issue. Take it out, take it out, take it out. Take it out.
All important movements that happened that we know about, that we refer to, did not come through the government. The suffragette movement, the civil rights movement, the anti-war movement, all started with the people. And so relying on the government to change their educational policies in order to do what you're talking about, I think is very unrealistic. But I do think that grassroots groups who see that going on, and I came a little late, I'm sorry, but I didn't hear anybody talking about also the indigo and crystal children who are being born, and they're the ones that are receiving the Ritalin because they have a different way of accessing reality and absorbing information, and they get bored so easily because they already understand everything. They think there's something wrong with them.
Can you just? So I'm going to take an access point. Yeah.
Okay.
What I like to do, because it's to balance this, and I'm feeling in my heart like the energy of this conversation. You know, it's reminding me of my old school system. You know, which was always very difficult. I spent 15 years in the school system. I was director of 10 schools, and it was always about problem solving, but never about changing. You know, and I've had the good fortune of working for people like Mikhail Gorbachev, and I worked at Michael Jackson's Neverland Farm. So I've been, I've had a lot of wonderful opportunities. And so I want to segue in somehow to a different energy field, and I'm not sure how to get there, but because my work as a result of having spent years in the system and focused on self-esteem development and realizing after I finished my doctorate on self-esteem that only was proving who was better and who was worse. That wasn't really allowing the human being to know the self, you know? And so my work became more and more about who are we authentically? What is that soul self that wants expression? And I want to say fairly emphatically that, you know, learning disabilities, emotional disturbances, retardation, we all have souls, you know, and we all have purpose and we all have potential. And the question is, what kind of arenas and safe environments can we create that allows that to reveal itself to each other and allows young people to mirror to each other what they really believe. And my belief system holds that once you tap into that, it is like a full sense of self. And it doesn't carry negativity. And in fact, it looks for connecting with others and feeling unity and oneness and feeling like you belong to the family of unity. So then the question for me is, you know, how do we get there, and what is authentic education? And if you look at the word education, it means educare, which means to draw out. It doesn't mean to bring in information. That's stuff that we can all learn and gather and do. And what I've also seen with young people, that if you really give them the opportunity to find that self, they will want to seek the information that relates to who they are. So it's a very, very different kind of approach, yes? And, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I wrote a little, trying. What I would love to do, I don't know how you feel about it, is to take like a minute of silence and to hold the children of the world in our arms and to understand that we've all come here somehow caring about them and that they are our future and we're here to serve them. And maybe if we could hold that energetic will help them move forward with us. Yes, thank you. Okay, so just take 5 deep breaths. Release all thoughts. Invite those wonderful, beautiful children all around the world into this circle. The hurt ones, the happy ones, the hungry ones, the fed ones, the white ones, the red ones, the yellow ones, the brown ones, the black ones, the family of humankind. And with an open heart, private words, offer to serve them. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So, this is my teammate. Yeah. I was going to tell you a little bit about the program that we do. It says we are one. If you see, their children's hands are from all different races, and the young people developed that logo. We were invited to the World Summit for Children at the United Nations. One of the things that bothered me, it was a World Summit for Children, and something inside me went berserk. And I said it should be of children. We can't speak for other human beings. It's not our right. And so we gathered young people from around the world, and we worked together for a long time on a declaration, which we then took to the UN, and the young people were brought into the General Assembly and presented it to the ambassador, and then at UNICEF, and then to His Holiness the Dalai Lama. And that was really the beginning of this work. And the other thing that really comes to mind when I look at the hands is that we took 250 young people to Vienna. They came from conflicting areas. They were all children of war, and had suffered greatly. And we did a week's program on the rights of the children, and with every right comes a responsibility. And they selected one youth to present to the UN, and he had 2 minutes at the podium. Well, they had two, a girl and a boy. The boy was Cherokee, and he said, well, we all have different color skin. We have brown hair, blonde hair, gray hair, white hair, etc. But we all have hearts and pump the same color blood. Why are you teaching us to hate? You know, and then there was silence in the room. You know, it went beyond all the human rights issues. And the girl, she was pretty amazing. She came from Guatemala, and and she held up a poster of a man bleeding on the streets. And she said, "For you people, it's just another person, but this was my father." Yeah. So the kids know, I've given the opportunity, and that's my work. And so when we work with young people, we do bring young people, we train young people to work with other young people. So I'm not sure what happens with this. Okay, try it again. Okay. Well, he's a wonderful hero, isn't he? I've met him many times. For me, he sort of stands in the middle of the world, a global leader, and understands the different components of what goes on in the world. And he had to be removed from his country to understand that. So, I think it's all meant to be. Yeah, and these are some of our wonderful spiritual practices. And what I see about all of them is that they knew the universals. They didn't only advocate for their own personal issues, they had bigger visions. And that's what we have to hold. So when I do my work, it's not about working in one area and empowering those young people. It's more about bringing people from different areas and learning how we're the same, so that we each learn that we belong to a community of humankind and that we're one family. Yeah. And most programs, if you notice, I noticed because I was involved in them, teach tolerance and accept differences and compromise. So I developed transformation, you transcend it. You look at conflict from above and you recognize, like an airplane, the terrain, and you see it all as one integrated piece, and you're able then to see that people are wanting basically the same thing. I spent a lot of time in Israel, in the Palestinian area, etc. And if you really listen, they all want the same thing.
Right.
So it's just how do you get there that becomes the issue, yeah? So if you're above and you can start from the bigger picture, you can work down until you understand that we're clothed differently. We have different races, we have different religions, we have different cultures, we're feminine, we're masculine, we're brought up this way or that way, but that's not who we are. And science has now proved that we're 99.9 the same. There's very little left to be different, yes? And then you also heard the other day, and I know too from Bruce Lipton's work, our genes are always changing. We can change ourselves moment to moment. We don't have to be the way we perceive ourselves. Change our perception, change the self. So we're one people learning to learn, learning to love, and learning to live. And this is really what I work with the young people on, and it's not that difficult. And it's about building a new civilization. So if you look here, we're free hugs. It's very interesting. We did a lot of programs in Switzerland, and I would say to generalize about people in Switzerland, they're rigid, they're cold, they hold themselves back. So what did the kids come up with? But free hugs. So they go out every week and give out free hugs. They break the tradition. They move it through. And I think I spoke the other day on reflect, connect, and act. The thing is to go inside, and we have a series of questions of who are you, and really asking, going deeper, going to dyads, go into it like, who am I? Why am I here? What do I have to bring to this world? How am I valuable? Until you come to peace with yourself. You don't have to be somebody else. You don't have to be number one. You are who you are, and that's really wonderful. And how do we get there? Well, you have to mirror it to each other also at the same time. You have to really believe in that process. And then you can learn to connect connect. Okay, so I worked in Pakistan, India. I can tell a good story about India. A guru invited me and he brought 150 young people into the room, and they had a lot of honorable dignitaries in the front, and it was a 3-day conference, and I was a guest. And then he got up on stage and he was doing his thing, you know, and honoring, and they were honoring him and everything. And then he said, okay, Nina, come on up. And he disappeared for 3 days, and he said, you take over. And
There you
after
go,
3
Nina.
days, he came back. I said, how could you do this to me? He said, I was listening. But what did we do with those young people? They were Himalayan youth. They sat in a circle and they talked about, we used the Convention on the Rights of the Child. Who are you? Well, you know, you're entitled to a name, you're entitled to an education, you're entitled to your health, you're entitled to participate in the decision-making of your life. Well, what decisions do you want to make, and what are they based on, and how will you take those? And, you know, really go serious. It's possible. And in Pakistan, you know, it's still, I mean, it's a sort of a hard problem because there's so much violence there, yes, but this young man now, he came with me to Thailand and learned in a Buddhist retreat how to meditate. I took 50 kids to a 1-week meditation there, and I work with a Buddhist group there, and he learned to meditate. And then when he went back to Pakistan, he sat in Lahore in the park and taught meditation to people. And he would get calls from wives, because the women don't walk around so freely, saying, I don't know what you've done for my husband, but he's changing. He's nicer to me. And one more story about this young man, because I really like him so much. He saved for a good year the money to come to Thailand. I try to raise money and they try to raise money. It's a mutual agreement. And a woman came to his house that had lye thrown in her face, so she got blind. And he took all this money and took her to a hospital and used it for that. But I put out an SOS to all the people I know, telling the story, and they raised the money for him to come. You know, so that's what spiritual to me is that we are crisscrossing the world together. That it's not about I, it's about we and us and how we can care for each other. In Nepal, see, this is Mark right now on the bottom there. He came with me when he was 16 or 17 to Nepal. We also I worked with a Hindu guru there, we did a program. And then what I do is train young people, and then they work with the kids of that area, and then they get exposed. And you never know who's the teacher and the learner, because everybody's learning through the cultures and the experiences, yes? And he learned Nepali, and his goal is to build an arts center there. And now this crisis happened, and he's there climbing mountains, handing out medical supplies and helping build things. And he's 22 years old now, you know, and he's there daily. And yeah, I mean, for me, it's been a lot of work because we've raised money, and that takes a lot to put out. But then every day I get a check, I go quickly to Western Union because they're allowing us to send the money for free. And we send it, and it's there in 10 minutes, and he gets it and goes buy supplies and gives them out.
Send him our
Better
send him our
than-
blessings. Send him our blessings.
Yes, I gladly do it. But, you know, it tells, you know, these big organizations that we raised about 8,000 in Indiegogo, it hasn't come through yet, you know? It's been sitting there for about a month. Now, I don't know why, but direct service is the way to go, right?
What is the lower right-hand picture?
That was the building of the schools.
Oh.
Yeah, and Jimmy, may peace prevail on earth. Yeah, I think I talked about it. May peace prevail on earth. Do you know the peace poles? Yeah, we have them all around the world. I just came back from Japan, Mount Fuji, that this is the organization. And their work is about deepening the spirit. But what I learned, maybe I always knew, is what sacred lives inside of yourself. And so beautiful to be with 6,000 people that hold that. Yeah. Okay, and this is in the Philippines. And these kids started I Am Mad, and it means making a difference. Yeah. And the whole idea, if you see our work, is we work directly with young people who then create projects that work with other young people, so that it ripples effects. It's not about me, it's not about the teacher, it's not about the facilitator. It's about spreading the word and feeling the power of making the difference and doing good in the world. Okay. This was a project of Bear Hugs. We do it all over the world for critical, but this has been helpful for U.S. kids because they often don't know what, they're entitled, they don't feel. So we've had bears and given them the opportunity to write cards and their names, and then we've taken them with Katrina or the tsunami or to orphanages, and often the kids will somehow write back to Haiti, and so that there's this crisscrossing, and that's what the work is about. Well, that's what spiritual means, is that there are no boundaries. It's sort of what Glenn talks about on the governance model I attempt to do on the ground level, And once these kids have had that experience, then they no longer think, so separately. What's this? Now, I don't know if you know Scarborough Missions and Tom and Terry. Yeah. And then Paul, yeah. Well, they're very good friends with me. And I love Father Terry. One of the things Father Terry did, I brought spiritual leaders to Vermont, and we did a televised program to all the schools in Vermont. And I had Nana with me, who is a queen and chief of Ghana, and a very regal woman, and her husband had been killed in a peace mission. But Father Terry got down on his knees and on the TV and apologized for all the atrocities that the church had done to them, as the Africans. And what a father that is. Yeah, and just so you know, this woman, she's a regal chief, but she told me she had to wear white gloves. Her name got changed. She got sent to school. She'd say to her neighbor, "What's my name?" Like she couldn't remember. They had signed her a name. So anyway, him doing that brought tears to her eyes.
By the way, this poster has now been translated into about 15 languages, including Urdu, Pakistani, and Hebrew.
Nice.
The latest one is in Turkish.
No.
And so this is a great way to also, if you're teaching and you bring in not just this poster in English, you bring in the other poster in the other languages, they get a sense of the global.
Right, the totality. And the message is, do unto others as you would have done it to yourself. Every religion has that. So, what we're teaching is love in all its different forms, yes. And if you love, you can't hate. It's really simple, Like you clear your mind. And we use a process in negative thought and how to release it and retrain your mind to be able to fill it with something positive. We do it in 5 minutes, the kids love it, and then they use it, practice it, and grow with it. So these are our guiding principles. Yeah, and then this comes from the young people. And I think I mentioned the other day, it's a code of ethics. This is universal. And again, the young people, all of this material has come from bottom up. It's not like you're sitting in an office doing it. You see that. And I do a lot of work in Africa. A young girl, this is a nice little story too, is a Nigerian. She's been with me since she was about 16. She had a dream that I was sitting in a chair in a white dress and she was sitting at my feet and she started crying, "Mama, Mama, Mama." And her mother came to her and said, "Here." And she said, "You're not a Mama. Nina's my Mama." And so now she's come to live with me and work with me. And she has 2 young children, yeah. And I'm her spiritual mother. You know, that's the way it is. And I have a whole lot of young people who have been inspired spiritually. I mean, what I want to do is magnetize those young people so that they can carry the work forward. It's not my work anymore. My work was to sound the horn, you know, and it's now their work to carry it forward. And it's their work to develop models that don't reflect the models and systems we have. So I love creating arenas where they start to think of what are the new systems that'll work, not, you know, what's been, like what is it you would like to see. So that is the goal, that they take the responsibility as seriously as possible. And that's it. Global news. We put out a newsletter, I think, once a month. And it goes out about 15,000 people, and we have about 6,000, 7,000 on internet, but it should be much more, you know, and it will be. Again, I want them to start to translate the work into their language, you know, I mean, it's not cultural language, it's the language that they hear inside their minds. That's that. So I'm open to any thoughts or questions.
There's a model in Pennsylvania, I don't know what states, but they call it service learning, where
Yeah.
they take the youth action groups that are out doing things, but then presuming the kids are in school, then after the kids have done a project, like any of the ones that you've shown, then back at school, they write essays about
Showcase
it.
it.
They showcase it and they translate not only the benefit of having done the service learning, but also then translate it back into academic, you know, strengthening their brain skills, you know, what values, you know, sort of.
Yeah, great. What I do a lot with the kids is, because I'm able to walk into different arenas, is like they'll be presenting at the Parliament of World Religion. We were the first youth group to have that ability to stand at the podium, you know, and have adults begin to hear what their visions were and what kind of work they're doing, to take them seriously. But, you know, do that at all major events. I see there's a World Caravan going next year through Jordan and Bethlehem, etc. We'll have a youth group there in Youth Ambassador. The idea is to empower young people to see themselves as the future so that they can start to take that level of responsibility and understand what it means to be a new leader, you know, and it doesn't mean the followers. Everybody's a leader if they really take a positioning on things and are really willing to fulfill themselves with what's needed.
There's an interesting thing happening here in the United States along the lines you're talking about. It's called our Children's Trust. And children in Oregon and North Carolina are suing their state governments about climate change because they are, yes.
They're what, Susan? What?
They're suing their state governments
Right.
about air quality and other aspects of climate change. Now, legalistically, they sometimes have to have an attorney who's over 18, you know, because children have very few, if any, rights here in the United States. But anyway, the theory is exactly what you're talking about. They feel empowered. It's going to be their lives, and they're telling the state of North Carolina and the state of Oregon, 2 states, which one is progressive and one is kind of not paying attention. And this is through an existing mechanism, so it'll be interesting.
Well, you know, we took a bunch of kids to Congress, yeah, and these kids all had parents who had AIDS, and they came back and they said they realized that the people that were listening to weren't thinking about the future; they were thinking only about the now. You know, their position now. And that's really true. Young people have to think about 10 years from now. You know?
In the process of teaching, I learned that students learn by doing.
Yes.
So a student and I developed a game called cooperation. In education, we tend to emphasize the individual, whereas with a cooperation game, they learn that they're better off when they trade with other people. They benefit. And that game is on the table in the vendor's room. It's called Cooperation, the Wealth of Nations game. There's a lot of other things there. I encourage you to look it over and take whatever you want. There's something there that says you can make a donation if you want to promote cooperation. But I don't want the lack of money to stop anybody from taking what is on that table home with you and sharing it.
It's great. I wanted to say something.